have Miss Jennifer Bell with us today on Hope Brokers. Welcome to our show. We've already been crying. We are we're two Hope Brokers. We're two people who have suffered immense tragedy, and we believe that sharing our story will help others in their times of darkness and despair and tragedy. So thank you for joining us, Jennifer. I appreciate your willingness to share. I know that it's hard to talk about the hard stuff, but I also know that when we talk about the hard stuff, that people can feel us, and then they know that they're not alone. And I think that's so important. I think in dark times, we need to really feel like we're not alone. I think that's why we're here. We're here to help each other, right?
Yep.
So we met Jennifer in junior high school. We go way back. I think we played volleyball together. I want to say we were on like the D team. I don't even remember. So Jennifer, tell me, your story is it's a heavy story. It's of loss. Tell us about Eric. Tell us about how you met. How old were you? Let's talk about that. What was your relationship like?
In 1998, we both met. We were in like a crack house, actually. And so I was homeless at the time. I'd been homeless for several years, and he was actually better at I guess, if there's such a thing, at doing drugs than me, because he actually had a place to live and things like that. So he was quite the Romeo to me. Yes. So it was at the time we fell in love. And shortly after I'd gotten pregnant with our first daughter. And so that slowed things down a little bit. And let's see. So I sobered up while I was pregnant with our daughter. But then after we had our first daughter, we started dabbling in drugs again, and it was meth. So we got pregnant again 5 years after that. And at that time, again, I sobered up, and I'd gotten in some trouble shortly after I had our second daughter, and ended up on probation. Just a little, like it was it was just like, like in hindsight, to me, it's just a little misdemeanor. I had like a frequenting charge or something for being at a place where drugs are used. Yeah, so I was sober for a while because I was on probation and stuff. We got married on 4/20/05, I believe. Yeah. If you meet in a crack house, you should probably get married on 4/20. I don't know. So
gotta stay with the theme there, Jennifer. I love it. I love it. I'm sure it was a fun wedding.
Yeah, exactly. Lots of people celebrated our anniversary. I'll just say
I'm
that.
sure.
So
every year.
So I was sober for like a year, and ended up pregnant with our son. And like, it was like, so my son and youngest daughter are just really like not far apart at all. And so that's when, like, that's when we cleaned ourselves up. And when I say cleaned ourselves up, it's not like in probably the normal person's context. I mean, we quit doing meth. So we still smoked a lot of pot and stuff. But, right. Yeah. So we just quit doing that. And Eric.
Jennifer, what was it that made you decide to sober up? I mean, in that sense, like what was it that you're like, there's something there's something that gets you to a place where you're like, we're done. We have to stop. Right?
Mm-hmm. Right. Here's absolutely. And mine wasn't quite as strong as Eric's. That's the thing that we'll get into like at the end of the story. But Eric was a type 1 diabetic and had been for his, like, since he was 7, I believe. And so it was affecting his diabetes quite a bit. And so he told me that if I continue using, I'm going to die. And so Like, we had a family. He had no interest in it anymore. I wanted to be a mom. So it was just time. You know what I mean? Like, I don't, it was, it was for his health and our family's well-being. So much so, like, I, I, I started coaching soccer. I joined the PTA. Like, I was pretty into this whole, like, housewife ordeal. That being said, alcohol was fine, and I became a raging alcoholic during that time. So, like, I was more of like a closet drinker because because Eric did not drink. He smoked pot, but he did not drink, and so I was hiding my alcohol use. So during that time, yeah, it was. I mean, I was functioning, but like only at first, right? And so there would be times like he would come home and I would be passed out and the kids would just be running around and things like that. And being who I am and as heavy an addict as I was, normal people would quit drinking at that time. I chose to be a closet drinker and then go back to methamphetamine because then I wouldn't get so drunk. But he didn't know any of that.
He couldn't tell.
So he couldn't tell, or he didn't want to tell, or I don't know. Like, I remember actually, yeah, when I was drinking really heavily, he sometimes would accuse me of drinking, and he would go in to give me kisses, and I could tell it was like so he could smell there was alcohol. So it got to a point where I would get mad that he would try to lean in and kiss me.
He was spying on you, right. And you knew it.
Right. Well, right. Or like trying to like make sure that we could be a normal family, right? I got to back up a little bit. Like, I didn't have a very good childhood, and there's like when I say that I was homeless when I met him and everything like that. Like, yeah, he was my best friend for sure, and he really worked hard to get us out of the places that we were, and I tried to. I mean, you know, he did a pretty good job, and the best he knew how, because so I gotta give that to him. But he did a good job of being a family man for coming from where we were. When I chose to start drinking and doing meth again, it totally shifted my train of thought from being a mom, and God, like, no more PTA, no more soccer and things like that, right? And honestly, I was so heavy into it that my family just started getting in my way. I mean, hindsight, of course, like, I don't look at it that way, but at the time and the addiction that I was in, they were spying on me, right? Like, giving me kisses. What the hell are you doing coming in so close to smell my breath, right? Like, they were in my way of my raging addiction. It was a New Year's Eve, and Eric wanted to stay at home, right? Because that's what people do when they have families, is they want to stay at home. And people that are closet drinkers on meth don't want to stay at home. And I packed up and I left my family that night. It was New Year's Eve. Well, so it was New Year's 2010 is when I packed up and I left my family because they were in my way. Went to a crack house, because then if I leave my family, right, like, I can be free to do what I want to do, or what I thought I wanted to do, right? Or of the people who loved me and wanted the best for me. But that's not what I wanted at the time, right? So
you were in your way.
Who are in my way of my destroying myself, right? And here's what I want to share about Eric is I left him with the kids. Didn't have the kids were in school. I left him with the kids so I could do drugs, and he never left me. Like, I would be out, God knows where. He would bring me food. He would, like, he never gave up on me. And that's the thing. Like, he just wanted me to come home, and he kept waiting for me to come home. And
he was loving you through it. He was trying to love you through it.
And that's what begets the tragedy, right? Like, he used to call me and tell me to come home and things like that. And I mean, again, it was in my way, like, quit bothering me. I'm trying to get high and stuff. And so a couple days after, or before he died, excuse me, he called me again and was like, you need to come home. And then I wake up to a bunch of phone calls on my phone. And I should mention too, like, I should just be on, like, I was committing adultery. I was tearing stuff up out there, because I was free or whatever. So, I got the phone call that, that he had passed away, and he'd passed away. We were still married. I still had my 3 kids. And now what the hell are you supposed to do, right? Like, what do you do when you are in the middle of a raging addiction? You're homeless, you're committing adultery. The only person that's ever had your back is now gone because you just kept blowing it off. And I just wanted to get everything out of my system. It's all I was trying to do, right? Like, I was free of my family, but like, my whole plan was to just get everything out of my system so I could go home. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but that's where my sick head was at.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to figure out what to do with my kids, right? Like, I was trying to figure everything out. And his family, I mean, we can kind of like create a scenario in our mind, like what his family must have thought at that time, right? I left this man with our 3 children, and now he has passed, and they did not want me anywhere around, and I respected that, right? Like, I told his sister, like, you can plan the funeral, like, you can, like, whatever you guys need to do, because I felt so much guilt, like, I cannot even tell you. And I felt like I had no right to even be with my own children at that time, right? Like, and not to mention, the only person that ever cared about me has just passed. Therefore, what is an addict going to do for that? The last thing they're going to do is to, what?
Get sober.
Normal people would sober up, but an addict's going to, yeah, but an addict's going to screw, like, I mean, I can't tell you how far down I went. But so his family, like, didn't even put me in the obituary. They put, like, every picture at Eric's funeral had my head cut out of it. Like, it was horrible.
You hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
There's a place I call it's the whole thing of this is despair. I mean, it's a place of, like, no hope, right? You get to a place of no hope, and where is that? And where's your head? And what does it feel like? And I mean, we know that you talked about your best friends now gone. You're just worried about the drugs. Your family's alienated you, and now you're at the bottom of your addiction, the rock bottom, right? Tell us about that, Jennifer. Where do you go from there?
Okay. I ended up living in an abandoned house in the basement.
So you were, like, squatting?
Shoplifting constantly. Yes. Yep. Shoplifting constantly. It was just a bad deal. Was shoplifting. I said I'd put it all out there. I was shoplifting from a thrift store, and I got caught, and got arrested, and ended up getting a felony. I had pills on me, and ended up getting a felony for that. And that is what was my turning point. Okay, so it was a process. I'll tell you that much. It was a process because, like, obviously, I went to jail, whatever. But I've been in trouble before. I've been to jail before this. I guess I didn't mention any of that. Yeah, and I'd even been on drug court before all this happened. But to no avail, right? So I got this felony, but I tell you, I've never been to prison. And I didn't want to go to prison, right? So there's a program here that's for like last chance offenders before you go to prison. It's called the Wood Court program. Yeah, you can stay out of prison, but you have got to follow like very specific guidelines. And I actually asked the judge, like, I wasn't given probation or anything. I asked the judge to be put on this program just to see, well, first of all, if I'm being honest, to avoid prison, right? But also, I wanted well, like I knew people in this community that had gotten well from this program, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna do, like, I have nothing to lose. It's either live like this for the rest of my life or do everything these people are saying and see what happens, like worst case scenario, right? So the turning point is you have to start in this program. You have to do 8 weeks of in custody treatment, which means in jail or incarcerated, right? They actually make you go to like church services and things, which I thought that was ridiculous at the time, but I wanted to do everything they were asking. I know, God forbid, everything they were asking. And there were several, like there's quite a few people in custody in this program, right? And so everybody's supposed to be going to the church services. Well, on this particular day, they called everybody for church. Somehow, some way, I was the only person in that church service. Nobody, I don't know why or what happened. Well, I do know why, and I do know what happened, right? And this guy that was doing it was a God thing, and I was broken, and he prayed with me, and he, like, it was there that I felt the Holy Spirit begin to work in me. I was broken, and I can't tell you what it's like to come out of that kind of addiction, and all that guilt and the shame, the huge shame that I'd been bearing for leaving my family, running from my children, hiding from everybody that's loved me, and then becoming sober and coming to the realization that what I've done. And so in that church service, I just kind of laid it all out there, and we prayed for forgiveness, and he told me that God already had died on the cross so that I could already be forgiven, and I was already forgiven. And it wasn't about God forgiving me, it was about me forgiving myself. And that is where I began treading the road of happy destiny, I think.
I'm sorry I had to stop you there, but I always feel like there's always a pivotal moment where God is very much involved. And I felt like for you, just based on the energy, I felt that there was something there. I'm glad that you shared that, and thank you, because I think he uses people. I think he uses people for our benefit, and I think that there are people out there that sense that we need them, and that we need certain words. We need to know that we can be forgiven. I have a lot of shame as a parent. Mine wasn't an addiction, but my girls had to go through the loss of their brother by themselves. I was not present. I was in my own fog, so I understand that guilt. And you're right. it's, for me, it's not, you carry a lot of guilt and a lot of shame, and you have to forgive yourself. Forgiveness is always about self first. I think always about self first, because when you can love and forgive yourself, it's so much easier to have compassion for other people, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Yes.
Good stuff. So So you started that program, and then you did really super well. You had God in your life, and tell me more about that, and then what happens.
Okay, so yeah, I just learned. So I had God in my life. I started after that. Like I was just super thirsty for church, for this particular. It's Water Springs Church, and I just created a family through them. And I learned about the recovery community where I live, and um, I just started surrounding myself with people who didn't judge me. Like I had lived around people who had done drugs and just totally different mentalities, obviously, than people that go to church or people that like are healthy. And I started surrounding myself with all these healthy people. And
Yeah.
there was this lady at church who um, she had just lost her husband. Married, yeah, she used to be married to a pastor, and um, she asked me to go to this grief share group with her. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, so I went to it for her to support her. And in that group, I especially found, a whole other group of people that were teaching forgiveness and were teaching, like, I don't know, we all kind of learned how to grieve together. And that's something that I didn't get to touch on um, in in the Wood Court program, right? Like they're more of a, but this is more of a grief group that teaches about God and how God doesn't leave you when even though somebody leaves. And I mean, it was just like this tight knit family that we became, that little grief group.
I think that
Yes,
we assume that we're supposed to know how to fix ourselves. When something's broken, when we
right,
have something in our mind or a tragedy or trauma, we expect that we're just supposed to. And I think instinctively there's certain things we can do, but if we lack the coping skills, or we don't
mm-hmm.
know, how to dig ourselves out of a hole. So yeah, when stuff like grief share come up, and compassionate friends for grieving parents, and yeah, I want to share that stuff, because
Yep.
there is so much hope and support in there. That to me is everything,
Yes,
besides God, because God
yep,
obviously is number one. But
right,
support, I would not be where I am today. There is no way I would be where I am today without the support of the community that I had. I had people checking on me every day for over 2 years, every day for over 2 years. I mean, it's incredible to me. But you have to build that community,
yeah,
right? I mean, there's helpers, there's
yep,
people that when tragedy happens, the helpers come, right? The caring, helping, compassionate
right,
fixers, right? They're there. Those people show up for you, and but besides those people, you have to build a community as well. So you have to be that friend. You have to build those relationships so that when tragedy happens, you have that support system. We can't wait for people to come to us and build those relationships, right? We have to build that network of
right,
support ourselves. And when we are that friend to people, when we build that network, when tragedy strikes, the helpers show
mm-hmm.
up, but also your network of people show up. And it's so vitally important to build relationships with people, genuine, caring, honest, authentic
Mm-hmm.
relationships. And the more that you pour into people, the more people will pour into you. And it really, really matters. And it matters when tragedy happens, because we get to a
Mm-hmm.
place of no hope, utter and
Right,
complete despair. And right, Jennifer, because we're alone with our
absolutely,
thoughts. To even think about it just takes me back, and it's such a dark place. But hope comes from the communities that we are part of. And I so thank you for sharing grief share. You told me that something
mm-hmm.
happened in 2019.
2019. I really don't know how to explain what happened. Um, well, I'd been working on myself for so long, right? And I'd been working on building this community that we were just speaking of and everything. And I was surrounded by good people. And and then I met a man, and Yes.
Be a
And
baddie
so,
about it. I'm just kidding. We're
well,
responsible for our own choices,
actually,
right? Unfiltered accountability.
no,
You're not missing what I
yes,
just said.
yes. No, you're fine. Like, so I built this community and I had all these people around for me. And then I found the the one thing that I felt I needed at the time, and that was somebody to share my time with and cared about. Um,
You wanted
it
love.
was actually I was in love, and yeah, and it was somebody that understood my past because it's actually the man who introduced me to my late husband. It was his best friend and one of my best friends and I hadn't seen him for a long time, right? And so he was in recovery. And so it was meant to be, right? So my whole mind just clicked from this independent, you know, well, I don't even know what it clicked. It clicked into love is what happened. And so um, what happened is he ended up relapsing himself, right? And at this time, I was in school to be a drug and alcohol counselor, right? Um, and
Wow.
so when he relapsed, I was like, I don't want anything to do with you, this and that, and then my wheels started spinning, right? I'm like, well, what am I going to school for if I can't help him? Like, what am I going to school for, right? Like, I love this man, and I want to. Yes, total codependency. I don't know what. Like my entire sickness, like kicked back up somehow. Like not. I and I started obsessing. It was, and for me, addiction is it's obsessing over everything, right? Like if you're not using drugs, you're obsessing over a man, or you really have to keep these things in check. And so I started obsessing over him using, and in doing that, like I just obsessed over like him not using, and I could not think about anything but that, and it ended up to the point where if he wasn't going to stop using, then you know, I should, like, if I could just jump into the pool with him, right? And just get on the same wavelength he was at, then I could pull him out,
Help
right?
him. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm that full of myself that I think
You're cool enough to do it. Help him out.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like I'm in school now. Why wouldn't I be able to? So
Right.
that's so I did that, right? Like I did jump in the pool and well, it didn't work out the way that I thought, like, right? Like, thank God I built that community that we were just speaking of, right? So I jumped in the pool, but I had to build this community already. Like I had people that
A support
would
system.
help. Yes, right? Like so I called my old probation officer and I told her I'd relapsed. I asked her to put me on pretend probation. And she had agreed to do it. Like I went in
That is
like
awesome.
yes, I went in like a couple times a week and reported to her like how I was doing. I had been in treatment prior to going to Woodport at this place called Stewards of Recovery, where my mentor and the director there, the woman that is wearing the 2187 thing. Like so I called, but I did call her. Like I was like, there were certain people that I was scared to death to this point, right? And it was my mentor that worked at Stewards of Recovery. It was the people at my church. It was the people that went to my 12-step meetings that I resumed going to. And most of all, it was my children, right? I guess I haven't even mentioned that, but I've been rebuilding ever since I got in recovery, slowly rebuilding this relationship with my kids. Um, to this day, like they don't know that I relapsed. Like I was terrified for them to find out that I
I'm
couldn't
sorry.
put it together. No,
I can edit it out if I need to.
nope, because it's part of my story, right? Like it's part of my story, and that's just
Yes.
where that's. I mean, I mean, to thine own self be true is a big thing for the 12-step meetings, and I'm going to be true to myself and the story that I live, right?
Well, and I think it's
And
important too people to know that you can relapse after recovery and get sober and stay sober, right?
Like that, one of my favorite quotes is like, so yeah, you can relapse and you can definitely pull yourself out if you have a good support system. And relapse, they say relapse is a part of recovery, but I relapse is a part of your addiction. It is not part of your recovery. You know what I mean? And there was parts of me that were still sick. And so that gets me to my point as to, there were parts of me that the brain's a fascinating thing, right? I got sober. I had the support system. I went back to counseling and I started talking about Eric again, right? I still had a little bit of sickness, even though I've worked through the grief and everything. Something was coming up about Eric, like almost like a regurgitation, if you will. And I started talking about Eric, and my counselor was like wanting me to write letters. And then one night in bed, everything just like a Rubik's cube went, and and I blocked out my brain like so many things that had happened like right before Eric died. Eric, Eric had made appointments for all the kids to go to counseling. Eric was trying to get his will together. Eric had called me a couple days before and says he's not, I better get my stuff together so that I could take care of the kids, like a Rubik's cube, right? Like Eric had called all of his like close friends and family members over to like a couple days
You
before he
started
died.
seeing everything.
Yes, my brain finally was able to process things that it was unable to before for whatever reason. And so
That's God protecting you, by the way.
exactly. And so there you go. So I was able to work through the one component that I was like not willing to look at before. And it was because of that relapse. You know what I mean? I was just like, oh my gosh, that's so weird that like all that stuff happened right before Eric died. Like that's how I lived for years. And so that's how that worked out. You know what I mean?
But it sounds
And
like
once
that relapse was detrimental to you being sober today.
Right, exactly. Like it was, right? Like it was inevitable. And I wouldn't recommend it, but it was inevitable for me. And I was just kind of able to pick up right where I left off, right? Like I went back to school for drug and alcohol counseling. I am going for my last semester, January 11th, right? I, yes. And went so I got my recovery coach training and a peer support training because all I know is the only way that I could live with myself and the choices I've made. And yes, it's great God gave me and all of these things, but what was it all for, right? It's to give others hope. Like my story is gnarly AF, but if I can use those things to catapult myself forward and to show other people that like if it can be done, right? So there was a treatment center that I went to shortly before I started Wood Court. It's called Stewards of Recovery. And this woman, this director that runs it, her name is Jana. And she's never, ever turned her back on me. She's given me she's shown me like what it means to love myself. And I don't know, she's just never turned her back on me and never, I would go in
Kind of
there
filled out
throughout.
Eric's role.
Yes, exactly. Like she really, I can't tell you what she's done for me. And so I've just kind of never, like even when I was in the Wood Court program, I would go in there and just kind of, I just kind of never left her treatment facility because she was like the first person I ever trusted, is what I would say. After my short stint of relapse and everything, it was just time to get to work. I after being sober for a year, I was able to go and start work for her. And so I work at a rehab facility where I get to give other addicts hope, right? I get to like sit with people who are come in every day just as broken as I remember being, right? And just annoy them with my joy and happiness and enthusiasm for recovery, and just like I get to show them like that there is happiness and there is fun to be had, right? And that's what I get to do while I finish school to be a drug and alcohol counselor, right?
Yeah.
And I might add that that man that I was in love with that relapsed
Yeah.
also got treatment, right? He also got treatment. We separated. I worked on the stuff I had to work on. He worked on whatever he needed to work on. Um, and we came back together, right? We came together when we were, yep. We came,
What?
yeah, yeah,
What?
yes.
Oh, I'm gonna cry. I didn't know.
Yeah, yeah. So, yep.
Okay,
So we
the
comes
best love
around.
story ever.
And also another thing I would not recommend, but like we've made it, we fought through everything, and it really is, Tanya. It is like it is about the people you surround yourself with, like because of the support that I gained, and because of the support that he gained, and because of like 12-step programming, and our like my belief in my yes there he is, and my belief in my higher power, and
Guys
my
just
friend.
got engaged.
We did just get engaged on Christmas Day. Yep. And so my story is a story of hope. And I mean, I didn't expect, I don't cry very often, Tanya. I really don't. I don't cry. Um, I don't. And I didn't think that I'd be crying in this whole interview, but there's a lot of pain in the world. But there's also a lot of love, and there's a lot of joy, and there's a lot of things that we are capable of rising above if we just look around and look for who's putting their hand out to help us. You know, that's what it's
I
all
think
about.
I, there's a lot to reconcile when you lose somebody important, right? You have to really kind of dig deep.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that I think about Jesus, I think about everything that he went through, and I think about how God watched his only son suffer the worst kind of suffering, and how Jesus didn't want to suffer. Please let this cup pass, or take this cup, whatever he says. I'm not real religious. I know the gist of it. I aspire to be. But the point is he didn't want to be there, right? He knew what was coming. He didn't want to be there, but he knew he had to be. He knew he had to be, and that is why we have to endure the end. I had attempted, but I started a nonprofit. I think it was 2014 with my friend Jaron Lisinski, and I started it because a really good friend of mine lost her son to suicide, and he was only 16 years old.
Oh.
And at his funeral, and this was before Talon died, I just watched them look over the body of their son's, of their son's casket. And I could never imagine knowing what I know now and feeling what I have now. The pain that I felt for my friend there was paled in comparison to what she was going to live with for the rest of her life. But knowing in that moment and seeing her grieve over the loss of her son, I knew that suicide was preventable, right? Those are preventable. And how we prevent them is we have to be there for each other. We have to watch for those signs. We have to be kinder. We have to be gentle. We have to look for those. If we look through compassionate eyes, we can identify when people need us, And I do believe that that's why I don't believe that God puts things on us. I believe we go through things so that we can be there for other people that need to. I can tell you unequivocally, I would not be here today if it wasn't for other grieving parents before me. If it wasn't for other parents who gave me hope, because they would tell me that they had joy again. And when you come from a place of despair, you can't imagine a world of joy ever again,
Right.
you know?
Yep.
So when you see people happy and you see people thriving and you see people that are living after tragedy, Jennifer, like you, and your amazing story, you have to know that you have been blessed with those trials so that you can help other people. And there's so much good on the other side of it too. But my whole point is that we really are here to endure to the end. We really, as much as Christ went through, I know that we're here to endure to the end, and that, you know, suicide is preventable. And we really just have to encourage and uplift people to hang in there and help them endure, because that's really why we're here. It's just to be here to support, to become better people, and to leave this world better than we received it. So, Jennifer, is there anything that you feel like I missed? Anything you want to share? Is there, you did actually, it's really funny that you shared is it Maya D'Angelo?
Oh, Mother Teresa.
Mother
Yep.
Teresa. Sorry, Mother Teresa.
Oh.
I have a Maya D'Angelo one saved too, but the Mother Teresa quote. Do you have it handy? Can you read it? Because I love this and I just want to.
You bet. Okay. People are often unreasonable and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are honest, people may cheat you. Be honest anyway. If you find happiness, people may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today may be forgotten tomorrow. Do good. Give the world the best you have, and it may never be enough, but give your best anyway. For you see, in the end, it is between you and God, and it was never between you and them anyway.
That's life, right? We need to just be the best versions of ourselves. And I think that there'll be a ripple effect on everybody. And I just, is there something that you would tell people that helped you in your sobriety or in your joy or in your happiness or in your hope? Something that you did every day that kind of changed your thought process, changed processes, changed your patterns, changed how you felt about life? What would be one thing that you would encourage everybody to do? Just one thing every day that would make a difference for them in their paradigm and their mental health and the way that they think about their life, their joy, their happiness, the world that we live in.
That I've realized that I have a choice. I realized every morning when I wake up that I choose happiness. Like, it sounds so cliche, but like, you can choose, like, yes, there are bad things that happen, and yes, we do have to work through things, and it's not always rainbows and butterflies, but it's your perception of these things, and it's how you choose to hold yourself in in any situation, right? And it's whatever you need to just choose happy. It's what you need to do in any situation. Yeah. Choose happy.
And so one way that people can do that, and I think one way that helps me is, and it's so true, in losing a child, I had to find things that would bring me joy. And can I tell you that, I mean, this is probably the silliest, dumbest thing, but this is one of the very first things that I did to try to find happiness. Dumb, easy to do, simple, has nothing to do with like personal development. I literally went to the TV and I found something funny and I engulfed myself in it. What four guys that played pranks on
Impractical. I love them.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I was laughing. Even if I was laughing and crying, I'd laugh 1 minute and then I'd be crying about myself. But it was something that I was giving myself joy. And so I guess my call to action would be to people is just find things, whether it's a comedy show or a hobby or something that you can look forward to, or something that can bring you joy, or something that can make you laugh, or something that can just give you a little bit of happiness. Those are the things that I sought for, was those things that would kind of give me some sort of peace or a bit of joy or a little nugget of some sort. But you do, you have to choose them, you have to seek them out, you have to look for them, because when you're in a traumatic state of mind, it's hard to find things to be happy about. You're not there mentally. You have to seek them out with God's help too, right?
Yeah.
God will show you. There's so much to be grateful for. You just got to open up your heart to it, and it's everywhere,
That's right.
Jennifer, I love you. I adore you. I think you're an inspiration. appreciate what you said about bringing people hope. That's really what this is about, is that I feel like everybody kind of has a story. Some people's are very deep and dark and painful, and some people just understand because they've been where you've been, whether it's divorce or child loss, obviously, or you lose a husband, or maybe you just lost your job, or you lost your home. I mean, there's so many people going through so much stuff, and it doesn't have to be the worst trauma in the world, but to know that there are other people that have been there before you that can help you out with resources or tools or coping skills. But thanks again for being on. I love and appreciate you. I'm so grateful. Anyways, again, Jennifer, thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you for being a hope broker. I love you so much, and we'll talk again soon. Congratulations on your engagement. I love that. This is the best love story, for real. And congratulations on your sobriety.